Is live, and full disclosure up front here, I am going to rip off a bunch of people today, starting with David Hancock, who is semi-famous for his Cameras and Coffee series here on YouTube on his channel. He's got a great channel, talks about all kinds of cameras, tutorials. He has challenges on there, all kinds of stuff, and very instructional. And he's kind of the professor of photography here on YouTube. But anyway, I'm ripping him off because I am going to talk about cameras today. And I've got my coffee here in my comically large Batman cup. The other people I'm going to be ripping off today are a bunch of popular film photography bloggers. Some of them do more than film, but a lot of them do concentrate on film. But apparently there is a group chat that a lot of these photo bloggers belong to. And one of the discussions they had recently was talking about what are the 5 cameras that you would have to pry out of their dead cold hands, or just basically 5 cameras that they'll never part with, never get rid of. And there's a lot of these bloggers that put out blogs here recently about this topic. Some of the ones I can think of off the top of my head are Peggy Marsh, Alex Laux, Theo Panagopoulos, Stephen Dowling, Eric Jason, Alan Duncan, Jim Gray, Jim Graves, Mike Ekman. There might be more, but those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. So they got me thinking about my own camera collection and what are the 5 that I'll never part with. And I'm going to go over this with you today. I grabbed a couple cameras, I got them on my desk here. But these are my answers for today. If I do this tomorrow, you'd probably get different cameras. Maybe 5 different cameras, maybe 1 or 2 different cameras. But the first one that I think I'll never get rid of is the Pentax 6.7. The big boy. This is a beast. One of the reasons I love this is the negatives or the images you get with this. They're just the 6x7 negatives are huge. They're gorgeous to look at. Even if you just look at them, hold them up to the light or a light table, just look at the negatives. They're super cool to look at. Very cool if you develop your own film. You see them when you first pull them out of the tank. It's a magical experience. One of the other reasons I like this is it's got this famous lens on here. This is an f2.4 105 millimeter lens, and it's great for portraits. It's great for portraits if you nail the focus. If you're an old guy like me and your eyes aren't maybe quite what they used to be, it's not always easy to nail that focus. But when you nail it, it's great. When you miss it, not so great. But that's why I take, maybe a few pictures, not just one of each subject, so that hopefully some of those will be in focus. I do have only 2 lenses for this. This is an SLR. It's just like basically it has the same form factor as a 35 millimeter SLR, just kind of on steroids. I've got 2 lenses. This one, the famous one. I also have another lens here that is an f4. It's a 55 millimeter lens, and in this format, that's roughly about half that on a 35 millimeter equivalent. So like maybe 20 something, 28, 30, something like that. And I've used this one a lot for landscapes and that sort of thing. Great for that. So the only reason I don't use this camera more is probably the reason maybe a lot of people don't use it more. It's super heavy. So if you're out shooting all day, it's a beast, and it's every bit as heavy as you heard of. It's nothing, insurmountable. If you have good straps, sometimes it'll help you out, make a difference. But it's not one of those that I would want to carry maybe all day or for like a whole weekend, especially if you got other gear, right? If you've got, a couple lenses with you, but then if you carry on a couple other cameras, it can be kind of hefty. But the Pentax 6.7, legendary. And this is one of those that I think mostly lives up to the hype. So that's probably my first one. That would be pried out of my dead cold hands. It looks like I got a couple people watching. I would acknowledge Cena across the pond there in Europe. Appreciate you watching, Cena. Looks like my wife is on there too, watching on her lunch. She did not know I was doing this. I didn't know I was doing this till about an hour and a half ago. And I was going to do this maybe on Friday, but I found out that I've got going to have a house full of people on Friday, so that was a no-go. So here we are today. But thank you for watching. Thanks everybody who's watching now. I really appreciate you doing that. Let's get another camera. I guess it'd be camera number 4 if we keep in score. First was number 5. Not that there's really an order. This one is the Canon Elan 7NE. So the Canon Elan 7NE is a Canon EOS camera. It takes EF lenses. One of the great things about this is that the lenses on here you can use on a lot of the Canon digital bodies too. I do have a digital Canon It's a Canon SL1. I think they're up to at least SL3 now. So mine is like super old. Doesn't have a lot of megapixels, as we say. But even so, it's a good camera, and I can use this lens on there, and I can use it on here. This is one that I bought, boy, several years ago. It's one I just kind of forgot I had, but I've been using it. I've been loving it recently. I've been using the 50 millimeter f1.4 lens, which is great for low light stuff. And I've been using it with the Kodak Portra 800, great for portraits. I've participated in a few different beers and cameras events recently. And for portraits there, a lot of times these beers and cameras events there, well, they're in breweries a lot of times, obviously, and darker spaces. So the combination of this fast lens, the f1.4, and the 800 speed makes for a great combination. And this is one, again, it's way, way lighter than the Pentax 6.7. Still get great shots with it. And it's one of these, again, that has a lot of different modes on it. And these are very comparable to what you can get on the Canon Digital as well. It looks like Sina went on a photo walk on the 21st of April, so pretty recently too. And he was sporting one of those heavy Pentax cameras. So more power to you, Sina. It's builds character and muscles, I guess, too. So another great camera. This one again, this is kind of becoming one of my go-to cameras. The metering on it is great. The autofocus is excellent, which I typically do use on these lenses. Of course, you can switch it to manual focus if you want to, but again, it's one of my go-tos. Great one here. Oh, Sina said he didn't do it personally, but one of his friends did. So again, it's good to have those nice, strong friends. Another camera I have here. Let's take a look at another one here. I've got the, this is a classic, an oldie but a goodie here, the Holga 120S. This is technically medium format, although the images you get out of this are not what you associate typically with medium format quality. Certainly nothing like the Pentax 6.7, but this one is the original, the OG Holga, the 120S. No bells and whistles, other than it does have a hot shoe on the top, so if you want to call it a bell and whistle, I guess it is a nice feature, so you can attach a flash if you want to, which I actually probably am going to do. The good folks at Reflex Lab just sent me their super compact flash. This is their simple flash, they call it. And I haven't really got a chance to play around with it yet, so I think this one's going to pair up nicely with the Holga. But I love a bunch of stuff about the Holga. Again, I go back to the weight, nice lightweight camera. And this one, again, it's a toy camera, and it gives you that lo-fi vibe, that toy camera aesthetic, which is not for everybody. I know that might be controversial, but for me, I love it. It gives you pictures that look like they were shot on film. You're not going to mistake them for digital. There's a bunch of things about this that I like. The lo-fi vibe, there's a couple things that lead to that. It's soft focus. So on a lot of these Holgas, the center is mostly in focus, although focus is kind of relative term with these things. But you'll get some nice drop off on the edges, get a lot of vignetting, which I love. I typically shoot this in 6x6 format. Some of these Holgas do come with a mask you can put in that will make it 6x4.5, which again is another way to do it. I personally like the square format, the 6x6. And again, if you shoot this right into the sun, you're going to get some lens flare. Please protect your eyes. Don't stare directly at the sun. But if you shoot your camera into the sun, again, you might get some nice flare and some quirky lo-fi effects. I've got a bunch of these Holgas. I actually won a contest. It's been a while back with my buddy Mike Williams, and he sent me his Holga. I've got a couple of 35 millimeter Holgas as well. I don't shoot this as often, although those are a lot of fun too. I've got one that has BC. It has the darkened corners for a lot of vignetting on that 35. I even have a 35 millimeter TLR. It's kind of a fake TLR. It looks like a TLR where you have the taking lens and the viewing lens, but I don't think it's really a TLR. And it's pretty lo-fi, but again, that one's kind of fun too. I need to get that one out and shoot again. I do have one of these that has a flash built in right here, where it takes a couple of AA batteries on the inside, which is another good one. Looks like Sina got Holga 120 as a Christmas gift. And yeah, that is a fantastic gift. It's a super creative camera. I think you have a lot of fun with that, Sina. I hope you get out soon. Hope your weather cooperates and get out there and start shooting with it. So again, these are fun. I shoot primarily black and white in most of my Holgas. I've shot a little bit of color too, but I just think the black and white aesthetic, something with a little character and grain, something like a Fomapan maybe, goes great with these. And I like to shoot kind of old-timey subjects with these, kind of rundown stuff. Of course, the classic old gas station is a kind of a trope that we probably all shoot, but that looks fantastic on the Holga. So I guess if we're keeping score again, this would be camera number 3. Let's grab another camera here. Camera number 2. We have Canon Rebel TI. Canon Rebel TI in the same kind of vein a little bit as the Canon Elan 7E NE I showed you before. This one is super lightweight. It's one of the lightest weight SLRs you can get, especially when you pair it with this little pancake lens here. I've got, this is probably my favorite walk-around lens right here, is the Canon branded. It's a 40mm pancake lens, f2.8. I like that point of view. And it's just a great walk-around lens. Again, good for landscapes. You can get closer if you need to. It does focus, fairly close, not too bad. It's an STM motor, and this is another one that I can use on some of my Canon digital gear as well. My buddy Mark is having lunch, and appreciate you tuning in, Mark. Mark's a good guy. I actually just met him in person for the first time at one of those Beers and Cameras events I was referencing earlier. And just to kind of tell you the kind of guy Mark is, he actually sent me a bunch of rolls of film back, it's been a while ago now, and I still need to get out and shoot. A lot of it is motion picture film, which is pretty cool. So appreciate you tuning in, Mark. But the this Rebel TI is, again, one of my go-to cameras. I shoot this one a lot, along with that Elan 7E I was telling you about before. This one is not my newest Rebel. There was one after this, which I do have. It's the Canon Rebel T2. That was Canon's last Rebel series in their film line. So it's a little bit, it came after this one, so it's technically a little bit newer. I don't do that one as much because that one, the particular one that I have, this little dial right here that you control a lot of the stuff with, like the aperture and the ISO, that sort of thing, it is really pretty finicky. It's kind of sketch because when you turn it, it's really pretty random. So what that means is if you're trying to set the ISO, it might go from ISO 25 to 400 and then maybe back to 100 and then maybe 250 or 320. It just doesn't go in order. It's kind of all over the place. Same thing with the aperture. You think you're changing the aperture in a normal fashion sequentially, but sometimes it'll skip from 2.8 to 11 to 5.6 to 8. So again, it's all over the place. So very similar form factor on that one. Again, I generally probably shoot a little bit more since it's a little bit newer. You think it might be maybe a little bit more reliable, but in that case, again, because of this finicky dial, I don't shoot that one. Don't shoot that one as much. My wife she vouches for the fact that that pancake lens, she sees me shoot that all the time. Again, that is the lens I probably shot more than anything else. So again, another quality camera. Another thing I like about these is, again, sometimes these get a bad rep just because, it's maybe not much to look at, but, neither am I. So that's okay. I don't hold that against it. But with this camera, you can shoot it all manual if you want to. So it's got, again, you got the M on there for manual. If you want to shoot it aperture priority, you can, and I do that a lot, actually. If you want to shoot it shutter priority, that's available to you too. And if you want to shoot it in P or program mode, well, that's on there too. And it's got some actually other modes too, like a sports mode and a macro mode and portrait and a couple other things, landscape, that kind of stuff. When I shoot this, I typically will shoot it in either aperture priority or program. I shoot manual if the lighting warrants it, if I think it's kind of tricky and I want to maybe override things a little bit, but it also has exposure compensation. So a lot of times I'll shoot it in either program or aperture priority and then just maybe override things with the exposure control, with the compensation if I need to. So again, out of all my cameras, this one is probably the one that I've shot the most. We got another vote for this pancake lens from Cena. So yeah, it's really sharp. I know Alex Laux has this, loves it. And I know that Sherry Christensen from the Frugal Film Project, which I've been shooting it in as a participant for the last, I guess, 4 years now. Sherry is also a big proponent of this pancake lens. It's relatively affordable. Gear is not cheap. We all know that. But it's not hundreds or thousands of dollars. It's 100 and change. It's over $100 typically if you buy one new, but still less than 200. Or if you trade in, maybe find one used or refurbished, you save even more. I think we got one more camera left. I think that's 4. So we have 4 out of the 5, number 5, or number 1, I guess, if we're counting down in that direction, is the one that started it all for me. This has kind of got me down the rabbit hole of film photography, and that is the Lomo LCA. So the Lomo LCA, this one has kind of a special place in my heart because this is really the first 35 millimeter camera I ever shot outside of, you know, maybe a disposable back in the day. That's possible. I got this back in 99. I was just surfing around the web as one does and didn't have anything better to do and had a little bit of disposable income at the time and got one of these. And at the time, in the late 90s, where I got this from, it wasn't Lomography, it was the Lomographic Society International, LSI, that's what they were calling themselves. And it was a couple guys based in Austria found this Russian camera. The camera itself was introduced in 1984, so it's been around, I guess this makes 40 years now, so it's been around quite a while. But I got mine, this is not from the 80s, this is from the 90s, and I got mine in 99. You can see this little cartoon guy here. That's one of the ways you can tell when it was made. And then sometimes you'll see different branding here. Mine does say LCA on the top here. Some of them say LKA, and some of them have different branding. They made special ones for different events too as well. Then Lomography, of course, came out with their own version, the LCA Plus, that they added a couple doodads on. And my wife is saying the Lomo, yeah, this one goes back way a long time, and she's seen this one too many, many times. This one I have a special attachment to because, again, just because my very first 35 millimeter camera, it was really my main shooter for about a decade. I think about 10 years or so, I ended up using this camera. And one of the main reasons is it's the only one I had, because back in the day, I had this, and that, like I said, from late 90s on. This one got me through some tough times too, because roughly about a year or so after I got this camera, my mom passed. It was a tough time, obviously, as it would be for anybody, and we were pretty close. And this one helped me through that grieving process. That might sound a little weird, but it really did. So it got me out shooting, and I haven't looked back. Of course, shortly after I got this, or within the next 10 years or so, I guess, I did accumulate more cameras. I didn't necessarily shoot them right away, but this was back in the day. If you remember early 2000s, you could get film cameras pretty cheap. Let's say, 2008, 9, 2010, that sort of thing. And that's when there was maybe a little bit of a lull in film photography. So I could go to a thrift store and get all kinds of point and shoot cameras, and sometimes SLRs, sometimes rangefinders even, for a song. So these are cameras that cost, a lot of money just years prior. But again, there was kind of a dip in interest back in right around 2009, 10-ish or so. And that's when I accumulated a lot of my cameras. And then shortly after that, one of my bosses at work gave me his wife's, it was an Olympus OM2N, I think it was actually. And that was my first SLR. So this is not an SLR. This is a very basic camera. It's zone focus or scale focus. So you have this little lever on the side here where you can shoot. It's actually on this side here, infinity. It's got 3 meters, 1.5, 0.8. I've used mine so much you can't even see that anymore. It's all worn off. I, like a dumb American, do not think in the metric system. So I have just basically estimated this to 3 meters is roughly 10 feet-ish. 1.5 is going to be about half of that, so we'll go with around 5 feet or so. And then 0.8 meters, the close focus, we'll call that roughly about 3 feet. So I just kind of calculate in my mind. I've gotten pretty good at, I've used it so much, I've gotten pretty good at guessing. A lot of people don't like scale focus because you have to guesstimate and just to have a rough idea of what it was. Mark backs me up. He says, yeah, just think meters is yards. And that's kind of what I do because it's close enough. 36 inches, 39 point something. You're off a little bit, but close enough. And with a camera like this, people don't buy these to get super sharp focus anyway. That's the thing. If you haven't shot one of these Lomo LCAs before, other than the size of it, you can see it's tiny. It fits in the palm of your hand. So I really like the small cameras in general. But it's known for a contrasty lens. It's a Minotaur lens, they call it. It says it right on there. It's a 2.8, and it's a 32 millimeter. So it's a little bit wider than what you might average on an average camera. And you can shoot a bunch of different film speeds. You control the ISO over here. It's got, you can set this on automatic for the aperture here. It'll just, you don't choose the aperture or the shutter speed on this one. It just does it kind of automatically for you. But again, great little shooter. One of the biggest things about it, again, that I like is you can put it in any pocket. It's, again, super small. And there was kind of a whole ethos or ecosystem around the lomography movement. And I think there's 10 rules of lomography, one of which is there are no rules. Another famous rule of lomography is don't think, just shoot. And they encourage you to shoot from the hip, where again, sometimes you don't even look through the viewfinder. You just kind of hold it up like this, take a shot, and hope for the best and see what you get. And I have done that a few times, and sometimes I'm surprised with how good the results came out. So again, great camera, has a lot of sentimental value for me. For this is one I will never, ever, ever get rid of because it means too much to me. But again, I shot a lot of pictures on these before I got my Canon Rebels, like the TI and the T2 I was referencing before. This was definitely the contender for the camera that I used the most, because again, I didn't really use other cameras until my boss gave me that Olympus. And again, I bought a bunch of thrift store cameras. Now I've been very fortunate in having a platform like this that I've had people send me cameras. Sometimes regular viewers, some friends of mine have sent me things. A couple companies have reached out and sent me things as well. We have a note here or a comment from John who says he has the LCA Plus, the newer version that Lomography came out with, and he actually prefers the original. One thing I think it's kind of cool about the LCA Plus, and again, I don't have one, I've never shot one, is you can do multiple exposures in that pretty easily. It's got a special, I think, dedicated switch for that. They've extended the range of ISOs you can shoot, but again, we have at least one vote from John for the original LCA. But yeah, I've gotten a lot of cameras through the years. It's a little bit embarrassing of how many I have right now. And I think here at some point, maybe in the not so distant future, I'll do a little bit of a tour of the studio maybe, or at least at the very least, maybe show you some of my cameras. But I've got a lot. I know I've got over 100, over 150. I think less than 200, so it's still a little bit ridiculous. I have not shot with all of them, and I don't know if I get a chance to. The cameras may outlive me. We'll see. Who knows? But I think going forward, I do want to do maybe a couple lives showcasing some of my camera collection. Maybe just like one shelf at a time, so it's not like a 3-hour live stream kind of a thing. But I invite you back for something like that too. I'm going to quit bugging you anymore. Get back to your lunch. Get back to what you're doing. Get back to your lives. But I very much appreciate everybody that's watching here today. And take care. I'll see you the next time.